Hello and welcome back to Kohler Commentary. Today I am joined by none other than my siblings, Onni and Oppa, Jessica and Alex Chi. For some of you that have been following us on our own personal socials, you'll see that every month we tend to share a post of our Zoom with a book in our hand. And so since the start of this year, we've been doing something quite unique together. It's called a virtual siblings book club. Yay! If you've loved it,
Yay!
say yay.
Yay!
Yay.
So it's been a mix of really good conversations, a lot of laughs, and a deeper dive into just like really being able to discuss things that I think only we would be able to relate with one another. And so today I thought it would be fun to reflect on this experience so far. Discuss our favorite books and book discussions. And then, since this is an Enneagram podcast, we will talk about how our personalities show up through our book club. Because I bet you if different Enneagram types came together, their book club would look vastly different. All right, so first we're going to share a little bit of how did this book club come to be and what has the structure look like thus far?
I don't remember exactly how it came to be, but I think I personally wanted more accountability with reading books and I wanted to do it with you guys.
I went to visit you in New York and you had told me that you really wanted to do this book club. And the Enneagram 2 that I am and the younger sister that I am, I said, okay, let's do it. And then we talked about a few different books and then it came to be. Yeah, that's how I remember
When did
it.
I come into the conversation?
When we
Enneagram
asked you,
4, you come into every
you come
conversation.
to complete the sibling trio.
Hmm. Wait, you went to New York and you guys talked about the book club?
Well, I had gone to New York in January when Oma was still here. So she watched the kids with Matt. And then remember, Onni got COVID.
Oh yeah.
And so we couldn't actually do anything. She had been testing pretty much negative, but just to be safe, we stayed home. And so in that time, she had talked about it. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. If someone has a dream, I would like to help them get that dream.
Oh, now that you say that, I think I remember it was when I had COVID at that time and we were staying in and we couldn't really go out and do things.
That's what I
So
just said.
I know. So we were doing a lot of reflecting. And because we were doing a lot of that reflecting, it forced me to do a lot of the reflecting that I didn't do during New Year's time that I usually do. But I think this past year it was like crazy with being at home with the kids and with family. And I didn't really stop and sit and reflect and do all of that until you came during that time. And that extended time of reflecting and all of that made me think this is something that I would want to do, read more, but also have time to discuss and reflect on the things that I'm reading. And I know that I need accountability with those things.
But why don't you share what the structure has looked like so far?
Well, I mean, you didn't let me answer the first question,
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah. How did you, for you,
no, it's okay. It's
what
okay.
was your reaction? Were you hesitant even when we said let's do this book club? What were your initial feelings?
I'm trying to think. What I remember is I think we had decided just to read The Atomic Habits first.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought it was a good idea. I thought, especially after the new year, I thought that was a better way of keeping resolutions and being accountable. And I also, like I said, wanted to read more too. So yeah, I thought it was a interesting challenge. And I think because we are open, but also have a sense of like competition too. I think the combination of the book club with the habits was a good sort of combo in terms of what makes us continue to do this every book or so.
I think Opa brings a good segue. Our first book was Atomic Habits, and that kind of set the tone.
Kind of like going off of what Onyoko was talking about, Atomic Habit, and
Oh.
doing the ruthless elimination of hurry together. I feel like doing those two books together at the beginning of the book club was really helpful to set a structure for the book club, having time set apart to always update each other on how we're doing, the things that we want to work on, the things that are like really small or really big or anything in between. It was almost like a more formal way of updating each other on how our weeks are by updating each other on how we are doing with our habits. So I feel like the structure of our book club in the beginning was a little different. Every week, update on the books that we would be reading, and then update on how we're
Mhm.
doing with our habits for that week. I think
It's kind of self-explanatory, but to preface, Atomic Habits is about this author, James Clear, who gives us fundamental information on habit formation and how to accomplish more by focusing less and things like that. So, sorry, Anya, I cut you off.
oh, that's fine. And then I think the structure shifted to match more of our reading styles and how like how much we were able to do and realistically, but also challenge to make sure we were not just, doing the bare minimum as well. So when we started to update books monthly, the weekly updates would be about our habits. So that habit update almost helped us to keep a more weekly check-in. And then when we finished our books, I feel like the structure would be having discussions about our books.
I'm curious, Anya, as an Enneagram 3, how did you enjoy this checklist of habits?
Oh, it was great. I love it. I
How-
did great. I think I only like
Paid us
overread
once.
money twice.
So to just lay it out for you guys that are listening, because Atomic Habits was our first book, it just naturally allowed us to create this spreadsheet where we would create about 3 to 5 maximum habits that we would commit to for that week. And then we would check it off if we did it based on if it was daily or if it was weekly, this habit that we wanted to implement. And then the idea would be we would start baby steps and then we would grow and grow if we had multiple like tiers to that goal we wanted to accomplish. And then if we didn't meet the amount of check marks that we gave ourselves, so no one set this amount of check marks onto us, but if we met it, then yay. But if we didn't meet it, we would have some sort of punishment that would kind of result. And so Onni is saying that she very rarely had to do a punishment of payment or whatnot because she often met her goals as an Enneagram 3.
I think I made like $100 just
Oh, wow. Good for you. So this is a side hustle book club for you. Okay, so we've read 7 books since February of this year. And like you guys said, Atomic Habits by James Clear was our first one. The second was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Then the next one, we kind of did like a podcast version, which was The Office BFFs by Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey. Then after that, I believe was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano, which we had just finished last week in discussion. And so I wanted to pose out to you guys, what has been your favorite book we've read so far? What book resonated with you personally?
I really enjoyed all of the books that we read so far. I thought they were all very different. I also like that we started off with Atomic Habits and the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Thought they set the tone and structure for this book club, but I wouldn't say they were my favorites. I tend to like fiction more than nonfiction. So I would say my two favorite, actually one of my favorites is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. And for disclaimer, I actually read that before and I suggested it again because I was kind of busy and then I let Energy read that. So that's one of my favorites. But I think one of the favorites I've read so far in this book club, the two were The Midnight Library and Hello Beautiful. I think for Midnight Library, we discussed it, but I think that was my favorite discussion so far. I thought the book overall wasn't my favorite, but I thought the discussion that we had kind of opened up. It was a book that kind of talked more about like sci-fi elements of different life choices. So hearing your guys's which life path resonate with you was really interesting and I thought we had a really good discussion for that book. And then the most recent book, Hello Beautiful, I just really enjoyed that. It was more of a family epic story with a lot of great characters. You get to see just a lot of different traits from all these very flawed people and how they ultimately just survive. And I think overall that was probably the most emotional book for me in terms of the characters and definitely resonated with one of the characters more. So that was a really, really good read for me.
which character?
Oh, William? Yeah.
What was your favorite, NJ?
So Hello Beautiful was also one of my favorites because I haven't read a book like this before. I think the way it was able to draw out family lines in different lines of like depression, weird love lines that like definitely didn't expect, but it seemed very natural throughout the story. And then I think allowing me to kind of feel understood in certain family dynamics that I kind of shared in our discussion as well. But I did really like that book. Something I can talk about later is that I do feel like I'm rushing to finish a book. And so this is a book I think I would go back to and read slowly again because I did really like it. And then my favorite is Carrie Soto is back. I have also read a lot of the Taylor Jenkins Reid books. And so when I read these, I always see her embed characters from a previous book into her next book. And so that allows me to feel like a certain connection. Oh, that was in this story. And then they brought that into this story. So I really like that part. And then since all of us did play tennis growing up, and this story is a lot about how Carrie Soto is this really competitive tennis player. I think it allowed me to feel a sort of like visualization of how that's happening on court. I think the thing that wrecked me actually was the storyline of Carrie Soto's father, who was like an immigrant who lost his wife early on in their story, and then kind of just seeing his development. For some reason, like as I was once again rushing to finish this book before discussion, I was like putting Evan down and reading, and then I was like bawling. And so I think this was one of my favorites of Taylor, this one, and then Malibu Rising, which was another favorite one of mine. But my top two are Carrie Soto is back and Hello Beautiful. But I also really liked Ruthless Elimination of Hurry because I feel like it was the first time I got to do a more spiritual or like faith-based book with you guys. Even though we've grown up in the same household with faith as well, it was really special for me as adults to be able to talk through what our commitments were because of that uniting factor. And so that's special book for me in a different way. What about you, Onni?
I mean, similar ideas as you guys. I really like that we started with Atomic Habits and the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry coupled together. I think they were actually a really good book pair to do together. Like Atomic Habits really laid out a more structured, like this is what you should do, and all the kind of like practical advice on how to build better habits, whereas the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry was a little like step back, now reflect on the values behind the habits that you're setting and be more
Mm,
intentional about it. And of course, having that spiritual aspect to it, religious aspect, I think was really good. And similar to what Unyok said, we read a lot of different kinds of books,
hmm
a lot of different genres, a lot of different, even within fiction, so many different kinds of fiction. So I really liked kind of exploring all of those kinds of books with you guys. At the end of the day, my favorite from all of those other books was Hello Beautiful as well. I loved it. I really did.
Did you
But
cry for the last 100 pages?
I did cry for the last 100 pages.
Did you remember our discussion?
I wrote in my notes again. A lot of the same things that you guys said. I was actually unsure of whether I would like the book when I first started reading because of the perspective changes, right? And the characters, each chapter is a different character name. And it didn't like take on that character's perspective so much. It was more of like just a story from their side rather than just their point of view. So it wasn't so tunnel vision in a sense, but I fell in love, I think, with almost every single character of the book, the way that they developed as individuals with their family, the heartbreak in it, the generational trauma in it, all of that, and kind of seeing it go through the years was like a really good read. So I enjoyed it. But since we kind of started talking about like favorite books in terms of discussions too, I almost think it didn't matter about the book, how much I enjoyed it. It
hmm
wasn't my favorite books that led to my favorite discussions.
hmm
It was either discussion topics that came out from the books, whether they were, recommend questions from the books, or we came up with them from ourselves, or there was something that resonated so much that we brought it up. And because we do have different but also similar experiences, there were certain things that just resonated with all of us, right? And we were able to have deeper conversations, especially when it came to like Midnight Library, like Unyag was talking about. I also really loved the book, but the discussions around like life and disappointments and regrets and what you could change, but would you change it? And just like different ideas of life paths. And then also, Carrie Soto is back wasn't my favorite read, but I did like our conversations and our discussions about like competition and sport, connections with the character, relationships with the dad, especially the stories around the dad. I really did enjoy having discussions, especially because it was discussions with like you guys.
Yeah, I would also echo you guys, and it sounds like that would make sense that the Midnight Library was one of our top favorite book discussions. It actually wasn't one of my favorite books because the ending, not all of it, the end I remember crying a lot too, but part of it seemed a little bit more predictable at some parts. And so it was like in the middle in terms of favorite book. But discussion wise, I feel like before that, we had really good discussions in general, but nothing that was different than maybe even conversations we might have had in person with one another. But I think the Midnight Library was the first of the books that allowed us to kind of be like, oh, I feel understood in certain ways that I don't have to explain with Onni or Oppa about like maybe a certain unexpected like trauma I have, but like, that I would have to like make sure someone gets it if I were to share it outwardly. But in this space, I was like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know how to explain that. But I think that was what was special about Midnight Library for me. And I think the quote that you had posed from the beginning, it kept making me think. And it's even something I posed out to my cell group. So I was going to read it. Between life and death, there is a library. And within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? And while that is a question that can have so many different answers, I think even the way each of us answered that question also showed how we have a shared experience in certain ways and that we can understand each other, even if we have very different lived lives since our upbringing. Like we also understand each other, and then that helps us kind of feel understood. And I think for me, going back to the Enneagram stuff, like as an Enneagram 2, coming into discussion already feeling understood in certain ways and not having to prove myself maybe or whatnot makes me feel very free to share and then also listen, knowing that maybe even parts of that would be reciprocated. That and then also Carrie Soto's back because once again, family stuff, competitive stuff, and I liked the book. Do you have another book that was a favorite discussion of yours besides Midnight Library? I think Hello Beautiful had potential. That's all.
Potential, potential.
It had potential to have be a
I
great
like
discussion.
I liked all of the, like Nuna said too. I liked all the discussions. It didn't really matter the book. Obviously, after like starting with Tom Cabot's and Let Me Sure Hurry, but we did like the Office Ladies audiobook, right? That was like a good sort of middle, like a break, going from
Yeah.
nonfiction. That was a really fun thing to listen to, especially because we all know The Office really well. So, just hearing that and then going from that to like, four very unique and different, fiction stories.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think all of our discussions were pretty fun and yeah,
I
interesting.
have a question. What is y'all's least favorite book of these seven?
I don't think I have a least favorite. I like all the books for what they served in that season, in that time. And I don't know, no book I was like, oh, we could have done without reading that book. I
Mm,
didn't really feel that with a book.
mm.
I think if I had to choose, I would probably say Carrie Soto is back. I think just because they were all great books, right?
Hmm.
And I'm kind of only including like the fiction books,
Hmm.
and just in terms of like how it was written. Just I think compared to the other, it was a little bit harder of a read. Still recommend. Still,
Yeah, well, it's my
the book I
favorites.
was the book.
Actually, I was going to say the Office BFFs only because I listened to a lot of their podcasts back when I was in my podcast phase. And so I felt like when people tend to kind of repurpose content because I paid money for this book that was an Audible. I felt like I was maybe listening to things I had already heard for free. But when Oppa was saying it is true, Atomic Habits and The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry were both kind of heavy nonfiction books in terms of like being practical, committing to certain habits and spiritual commitments and stuff like that. That actually I see the purpose of that book being a break. And so while it might be a least favorite, it actually served its purpose. So it was good to stay in there. Okay, so then with all of this kind of coming through, I would love to know how you think our Enneagram types. I'm an Enneagram 2, the helper. Who's next on the list?
I'm an Enneagram 3, the
Achiever.
achiever.
I'm an Enneagram 4, the individualist.
Uh-huh. So we are all different types of Enneagrams, but we are in the heart triad, right? Which is kind of feeling centered and also based on identity and what does that look like? And so I'm curious, how do you think these types were influenced in how we engage in this book club? Like, did you notice certain patterns in our conversations or our responses? That's something I wanted to pose out to the group.
For me, especially, well, Nuna is the oldest, but her being a 3, which I'm reading again, I don't know the success oriented. Most of the time, she would kind of drive a lot of like our book club discussions. Also, just being the eldest and a teacher, we kind of let her too. Since apparently I'm
Thank you so
sensitive,
much.
apparently I'm sensitive and withdrawn, which is true. In terms of, I'll let you lead, and then I will kind of wait. Self-absorbed, temperamental, that makes yeah.
Definitely unhealth, but not now. Now
I'm
you
reading
good.
this. I'm reading this main, whatever.
So if I were to say Enneagram 4 is very introspective, they are in tune with feelings, creative, like you said, sensitive, identity driven, and empathetic. I think these are things that really highlight you. So you can continue. Cut you off.
Because you are a helper, you're very interpersonal, generous, possessive. Uh,
Oh, I am possessive, yeah.
what was I saying? I think in terms of what we shared and like discussed, I feel like our Enneagram types came out in how our discussions were structured, just in terms of like the roles that we took. So, like I said, Nuna was more of the order, like let's talk about this, let's talk about this and this, and then me and you and G would kind of come in and give some flair, expressive dramaticism, and you give your demonstrative people please. While Nuna, the achiever, is very excelling and driven and pragmatic in the way she led the group. It's an Enneagram podcast, right? So beginner Enneagrammers like me can understand.
Thank you for doing your homework.
It's right here. I'm it's on
Oh,
my
yeah. The beauty of virtual. Okay, Anya, what about you then? How do you feel about this based on your type as well and what was just said?
I agree with Unyok. I feel like so I was like trying to reflect on my Enneagram type as a 3 and how it comes out in book club. I think it comes out the most when we were talking about our habits and I, like am achieving all of them and updating the spreadsheet and it's there and it's a checklist and I'm like check check check, right? Even for book club, when I highlight important like quotes or parts of the book that I like, I always screenshot and I collect all of them and I write them all in my notebook them so that in case any one of them come up, we can talk about it. And then also pre-brainstorm questions that we can talk about. I also really treasure this time.
Mm.
And I don't want to miss anything that could be a point of conversation or discussion or a point of someone opening up in a way that we normally wouldn't. And so I think maybe, I don't know if that's a 3 thing. I do feel that you'll have to refresh my memory on the heart triad thing.
What do you
But I'm
mean?
guessing that we're all like in tune with our emotions. Is that what that
Well,
is?
you're kind of not. As a 3, you kind of repress your more so like those negative emotions.
I'll let you know, Nuna, I'm the professional here. What the heart triad means is you are motivated by your heart. So you make decisions based on emotion, right? Is that correct?
Similar, like in your instinctual center, right, you're going to respond first with feelings. You can either respond with your feelings or even repress those feelings. But there is some sort of feeling center that is your first reaction. It doesn't mean you don't have the others, but that might be the more heavy one within you.
And I think having a book club with that, I don't know if it's that. Honestly always thought it was just like our dynamic or our family, but I guess there is an Enneagram logic to it all. But I think because of that, all of our conversations were very open to, right? And
Mm,
I think we touched on a lot of topics that, spans from competitiveness in sports and personality to depression, right? To family, how our like relationships with our parents could be different for each of us, relationships with each other, our experiences in childhood versus now versus everything in between. I feel like the ways that we were able to hold those conversations were very, I mean, it's not like all thinking based, even though I did sit and think about, answers to these questions. I think they all come from a place of like strong feeling, right?
mm-hmm.
Like feeling these quotes that stood out or feeling these characters and how they felt and resonating with these characters in certain ways and finding those connections with each other too.
Mm,
Very pragmatic.
yeah, seriously.
Wait, what?
Opa said it was a very pragmatic response.
Oh, really?
It's one of the adjectives for achiever.
You are exuding confidence, which has been inspiring to others. Yeah, I would be curious on the because Oppa had mentioned this one line that like maybe me and Oppa let you lead. How do you feel about that statement?
How do you feel about that statement?
I'm asking you.
Oh, I'll say like
How I feel
knowing
depends on how
Nuna,
you feel.
yeah, knowing Nuna, I feel like you're just similar energy, whereas like if we need to, we will lead. And I'm sure we do lead in other groups
Yeah,
set.
other group settings. Yeah,
But with this, knowing and with knowing Nuna too, it's like we know that not only will she not mind if she leads, and not only does she prefer to lead, she's good at leading. So
yeah, yeah.
lead, let her lead. But if she's unable to lead, then we can swoop
Well, I have
in.
a question. Do you like being lead or are you letting me lead?
I will say I don't like to lead, but I like to with our group. Interesting. I like to wait until the leader needs help, and then I will
Mm,
help lead.
But I like that
Yeah.
idea that you're bringing up because
mm-hmm.
I just lead or write things down because not because like I have to lead or I feel like I have to. I just like really want to have good conversation or like some of these things just like stood out to me so much I want to talk about it, right? But I think bringing that up is a good point because in that sense we could change the structure of our book club too, right? Like with a new book, you could lead one of the books, Unyok, and then Unji, you could lead a discussion, and we could each turns leading the discussion so that it's not like, not that I don't mind. I just do it because
Yeah,
the
you
things
got
like
it.
stand out and it just kind of naturally happens. I
Yeah.
think it naturally happens. I don't think I force it, do I?
No, no, no. You definitely don't force it. I feel like it's just the beginning, and then however the conversation goes,
Mm-hmm.
it's generally like, yeah, people will be equally interactive
Yeah, I
and
think there is a
just
family
give it direction.
dynamic.
Just give it
Yeah,
direction. Yeah.
right.
It's like for me, I don't know about Bungie, like some books I wrote some quotes, but then sometimes like I'm not someone to take too many quotes or notes. But it's also like I want to be open to wherever discussion goes. But I also, yeah, I do want to cover everything that I felt and thought, but I also forget a lot of it. So it's like waiting for like, oh yeah, that's right. I did think this at this moment. That's why it's good for you because you hit all those points. Because then me and Angie be like, oh, that's right. We did also felt something similar during this character or this part of the book and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
good job.
All that to say, like, you've done a great job leading our discussions, but I thought that was not so much in this book club environment, but in general with like family dynamic too. What does that look like?
But
Because
I don't think I've been leading the conversations.
Maybe just starting the
I
conversation.
actually just feel like I just like bloop, bloop, drop some little guiding little moments, but I feel like if I was leading a conversation, it would actually look very different.
No, you're not. As a leader doesn't overtake a conversation, right?
Okay,
A leader guides. Like a leader doesn't hog up the mic. They make sure everyone is doing it.
facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
The achiever is very adaptive too.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on no, I agree. I don't think you like. I think we equally talk. I probably
Mm-hmm.
well no because Unji always has children, so she can't talk as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also played a part, I feel like.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think this is a question that was
very
posed
generous.
with book club, but even like that one time Ian and Agnes came over last year for maybe the holidays. Do you guys remember? It was like Ian and Agnes and then Chiwon and Chiani and then us. It was a good time. But that was because even before that, they were like, I don't see you as a maknae. Like, you're definitely not a maknae. And then that night, they're like, oh, you're the maknae. Like, I think, because like in general, our family dynamic has different dynamics. And I think that's just the way it is. Not like in a bad
Our
way.
family dynamic have different dynamics.
I think we're saying it's like we have our dynamic is different within our family.
Right, right, right. Like Oppa was saying, like Oppa and I would be leaders in different settings too. And we could take over in this setting, but it's not the natural order of our
But
family dynamic.
you guys want to take over? I want you to take over if you want to take over.
No, I'm withdrawn.
And then for me, kind of the things you pointed out, it's not necessarily the book club itself, but it was like, especially being a mom as well, like I felt like I was robbing you guys of your time, or I'm not. I think at the beginning of book club, it was we would discuss the book each week. So we would set markers within each week, like we would read this amount of chapters by this week. And I always failed at that, and I felt so bad because I was like, oh, I'm doing a disservice to this book club, and maybe I'm not taking it seriously. I don't want them to think I don't really, really, really appreciate this time. But then with that, we did revisit like maybe we should just do monthly, where by the end of the month is when we finish the book and then we discuss that book. And so I think that was a way that you guys definitely met me in what I was feeling was a lack, even though every time I feel that and I say it in the cacao chat, you guys are always like, take your time. It's okay. If you can't finish it, we can move on. And so it's not necessarily like a you guys thing, but as an Enneagram 2, my fear of people pleasing in a certain way, or like not wanting to, even like one time I think you guys joked about meeting yourselves, and it makes sense like to meet yourselves for a book, but
It was
it
a
hit.
joke, Angie.
No, I know, that's why I'm saying it would make sense,
It
but also I was like, it didn't hit me drastically, but it hit me because I'm a 2, and just being
but also
dispensable
it
is a
wasn't a
thing.
joke. It was because you had so
No,
much
it
going
wasn't a
on.
joke.
No, because I remember we talked about this in like it wasn't during text. It was like in the group where
Yeah,
like if you're too busy, it's okay. We'll
yeah,
read on our own, or maybe we'll read a book. And then
yeah, yeah.
I
Uh,
think you said that, Nina.
I
And
knew
maybe
it
you
was
were
a
joking. You
I know
said it.
it was
I
a
was.
joke because
Oh,
I
you
know
said it.
Andy's a 2 and I
Yeah.
know she'd be hurt by it even if we were joking.
Because Onni knows it
No,
all too.
because Unji was very, again, being people pleasing, but also busy. She has 2 children. We have 0. Um,
But honestly, it's not even the kids. It's like other people pleasing things as well. But that's another episode.
but I'm saying in terms of
Yeah.
like, again, because you didn't finish tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
I
And
know.
I think that's when and then we're like, oh, we had like, do you need
I
time?
think that's when it changed, right?
And also because
But
Nuna,
tomorrow, that was when I was traveling with 2 kids.
yeah,
So
Nuna reads so much
she
that she was
does.
like, I'm gonna read another book while I'm doing it. I was like, you're reading another
That's
book?
so right. And then she
That's
like
why
highlights and screenshots, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even on page 10.
yeah. Again, Inji, do not people please. It's okay. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
saying not
yeah,
people please. You are people pleaser, but yes, go at your own pace and
yeah.
get out. Yeah.
I think this is helpful to talk through. Did you guys ever feel tension in any way? I did. I didn't. I just felt tension with
Oh, I think
myself.
you just said I did.
I didn't.
A Freudian slip there.
Be people please.
Me? No, I don't think I did.
Tension? No, 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 no. It's been, it's been good. Like again. my schedule isn't as busy as your schedule. So, and Nuna has also been very adaptive, and I've been uh,
Because I
so
have less schedule than you.
I have less schedule than you now. So,
I
um,
have least schedule. I don't.
What?
no,
But you
in
have
terms,
the
what
most
are you talking
schedule.
about? In
Oh,
terms
I think
of
the hardest thing is actually, we didn't talk about this. We're on three different time zones. That's actually the
Yeah,
hardest thing.
oh yeah, okay. I guess that is the hardest thing
that's
because for me it's early for me. You guys are at
Yeah.
least an hour. So usually we do our book club on Tuesdays at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific.
7:30.
6:30. Do you not know time zone?
Oh,
Yes. No, for me,
this is
it's
why it's
6:30.
this is why it's
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
right.
you guys
And
are
so,
wrapping up your night, and I'm like,
right. But that's the original time. But then, especially since the fall has started, Matt has been hosting Cell at our home on Tuesdays, which is definitely new. That wasn't last year, which I already felt behind. But right. And so then I have to do both bedtimes. And so I always feel like, oh my gosh, like their time is precious, which it is. Like everyone's time. It doesn't matter if I have two kids, like everyone makes plans, everyone's time is valuable. And so then I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the time that we had originally set
mm.
because I always have to end up pushing it back, even if it's for Onni that's sleeping later. But also, Oppa, you have plans afterwards because your evening has
Oh,
just begun.
true, 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 true. I don't get upset if you push it back or you push whatever. I think well, past Tuesday was when you didn't finish the book. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
we had to change days. That was more of a that
Yeah.
more of a, okay. Yeah,
No,
if you
I
got
agree.
kids, that I understand. I was like, oh yeah, I do block off my Tuesday for book club. But then having to do another day, I had to move some stuff.
Right, right, right.
And I felt like the discussion wasn't as good as it could have been because
I'm
Yeah.
free every day, so
I don't know if you're a freelancer. I don't know if the
I
discussion was
feel like
pushed
that could
because
have
of
been pushed
me,
back.
but the discussion wasn't the richest.
oh, that was me. Um,
But that's because I pushed it back.
I feel like
But no one's to blame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But not Opa's definitely not to blame.
the time zone is definitely
Yeah.
hard.
Because
Yeah.
Oni's a teacher, so she has to wake up at like 5.
Well, I do even like now,
It's
it's
11:30.
11:30.
I
Oh,
know.
And my bedtime lately I've been trying to set is like try to get to bed by
Due to atomic habits.
no, I mean it's gone through a lot of phases. But recently I'm trying to reset like going back to bed earlier. So, but also I stay up doing other things a lot of times too, right? So
Hmm.
if it is any reason to stay up, this is, one of my best reasons to stay up. Oh,
Yeah. So I think that's pretty different. You know what? As we were talking though, I was thinking, should we maybe record a book discussion? Like we could say like, oh, this is the book we're reading, and then we could have a book discussion. Maybe if even one person decided to join us in reading that book afar. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
would we be as open if
That's
we
true.
I
were
think so. I think we're very triad feeling.
Identity center. Well,
well,
we can think that. Audience, if you're
you can
listening,
ask
would you like,
your podcast
yeah,
audience.
would you like to join us in one of these books and see if maybe by listening to us reflect live on podcasts, would that help you also reflect whatever it might be that you also read from whatever book we choose? Anyways, is there anything you guys want to share from whether it's the books themselves or the structure or the experience we've had so far within the Siblings Book Club?
I'll share. I really appreciate this book club for like so many reasons. Very, not superficially, but kind of like more surface level. It was really hard for me to finish a book. Like even one book a year. It was really hard. And in this year by itself, I've finished almost 15 books. That is crazy.
That's twice as much as our book club.
I know, but that's how much the book club has inspired me. But it's crazy. I really have a hard time finishing a lot of books. And so the fact that even just this space of accountability, of reading books, but also setting habits. So that's like my other thing. I love even just like little things when we share about our habits, like when we talk about goals that we want to set for church, Sabbath habits. I get a glimpse into what your Sundays look like, right? Even when we share about our nighttime habits, like when we want to sleep, where we put our phones, how we're working, all of that. We live so far apart from each other. It's hard to see our daily lives. And that's always something that I, get sad about. But even just sharing the little habits that we're doing throughout our day give me glimpses into, oh, this is what your day looks like. This is what you do in the morning. This is what you're doing when you're sitting on the toilet, like pooping and reading your QT, like this is even just like the little things that we don't get to live life together in a lot of ways, like physically together. So the fact that we have this space to share and have discussions and also read lives and experiences outside of just our own and find connections through that. Like all of it, I think has been really good. So I have really enjoyed our book club time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Will we ever live in the same city again?
What city are we living in?
I would echo that. And I think if I were to share now, what keeps me coming back is that this provides a special space that I cannot get anywhere else. And it's also lended an extra avenue of healing that I don't think is as overt. But because of just like us talking through things, it's brought like a really like a transformational healing for me. I guess, Oppa, you have to go too. Mr. Introspective, best for last.
Better be good.
Only Jangson.
No, I also agree that this book club has been very good for my soul. It's I also have read more books than I have in a calendar year. I've read 7 books because we've done 7 books. Don't overachieve. Um, no, it's been really great just having this time every week to being very consistent with meeting and I also think it's just been good for our health too. I think a lot of our habits are like physical health, but also like spiritual health and especially for this year, it's been something that has provided a lot of accountability, and just also like just direction too, especially like with faith and with just in general in terms of like talking to you two guys about it. So that's been really heartwarming and it's been very good for me this year. So I really appreciate Nuna for the idea and Unji for making the idea into a reality.
예이.
Okay.
그래서 지금부터 우리 그냥 한국말 할 거야. 왜냐면, 이건 너무 어려워. 그냥 영어를 하자.
So
Okay.
why do you talking Korean like a robot?
Great idea, Angie.
I don't know because I'm like reading it first in what my mind is telling me to say, and then I read it in my mind. So it's like 5 years behind. Anyways, if I were to describe our sibling relationship in a fruit, I would say in this current time, that relationship would be reflective of a pomegranate. Pomegranate is a very big superfruit in many cultures. There are things like, if I were to talk about the practical things that are up on my Google right now, it's to tighten skin, strengthen muscles, control body fat, fight cancer, etc. And I think in general, whether it's this book club or the way that our sibling relationship has been directioning towards, that's been reflective for me is like, especially I remember our Busan beach conversation as well. I think in general, that's a reflection of when we feel lost or we feel all over the place, we're able to reground ourselves. And even in Korea, we got these tattoos. Everyone's pointing at theirs, whether it's the hand, the foot, or the ear, because we got chi tattoos for our last name. And I think we ground each other. And I think that's an unexpected blessing that I've received from you guys in my adulting years.
Why is it unexpected?
You were gonna say
Because
all that in Korean?
yeah, I didn't know how I was gonna I didn't script it. Ani, what about you? What's your
I'm gonna go
fruit?
first because what if Unyok says my fruit?
I'm
Um,
not going to because I'm a Enneagram 4.
you're four, so
Yeah, it's a unique answer.
Even if you did, I would have changed it. So yeah.
well, my is pe,
Oh, okay.
the Korean pear. First of all, because it's my favorite fruit.
Hmm.
And it's also a fruit that you eat in the winter. So I feel like for us, we will always meet up in the winter, like Christmas time. Like even though we live so far away, I feel like we always kind of find our way to each other in the winter time. And when I think of pe, I don't think I've ever eaten Korean pear or pe by myself in my home. I have only eaten it with my family, right?
Hmm.
Was like cutting it for us. Little I guess that's it. When almost cutting it for us.
Oma also peels our pomegranate.
So it's the one fruit that I only associate, I think, with our family and with us. And I also think that our sibling relationship has evolved so much throughout the years. And right now, I really feel like it's in a sweet spot, right?
Mm.
Think about pe, right? Pe is used as sugary substitute, right? For instead of putting sugar in, it's used
Mm.
it's used in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of meats. It's used as that kind of that substance of like giving that that the sweetness
That's a
to
good, yeah.
natural sweetness. And I feel like we have kind of reached a certain era of our relationship in that sense too.
Okay, Opa.
Those are both very deep answers to this very
Oh,
weird
should you have
question.
gone first?
I wait, what's the question? If it was mentioned fruit. Uh I would describe our sibling relationship as a pineapple. I
Oh.
really like pineapples now.
Oh, really?
It's my favorite fruit. It's all, yeah.
Actually, I ate it when I was at your place.
Yes, I always, in my more advanced age, I have been trying to eat more fruits. And, pineapple, I guess if we have to create metaphors, pineapples are, it's a tougher exterior. And I don't know how that applies.
We've
But
broken through it.
can I speak? It's a tough exterior, but it's very easy to cut up and to slice. And for me, how I see pineapples now is, yeah, whenever I have people over, whenever I host, I always have fruit, and pineapple is one that is just something that I provide for people. It's very sweet. It's very delicious. And I've learned to appreciate it more. I learned to appreciate the idea of providing fruit more, and very much am grateful for our mom, Amma, that instilled that in us. And like, I guess, like our sibling relationship, it's I appreciate it more too. In the beginning, I mean, when we were younger, it was, especially since me being the only guy, I have a harder exterior. I'm withdrawn at times, but
You are the pineapple.
I am the pineapple in our relationship. But inside, I'm a very dramatic, expressive, and sensitive, and sweet, and yellow. So, okay. Yeah, but yeah, I think pineapple is something that I really, really like for nourishment, and our relationship is very nourishing as well. So,
Oh,
Hmm.
I'm allergic to pineapples.
are you really? No, you're not.
I didn't
I
know
think
that.
You're
pineapples,
allergic to something?
I know I'm not allergic to many things, but
When did
pineapples are
you?
the one fruit when I eat too much of it, it makes my tongue like ticklish, like
Oh,
kind of
well,
like kiwi sometimes.
Mm. Well, like pineapples are not a fruit that many people provide in their home. So I will say
hi
that
guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I changed my answer from pineapple to something else.
no,
No, no, no.
I
Okay,
love it. I think
Mm.
it's like pineapples. I
Oh, that
wouldn't,
is different. Yeah, yeah. Because I am a four,
yeah.
so I provide different things to people. Yes.
Well, guys, I think this is the sweet spot to end for today. You've pushed through our exterior and you've heard the deliciousness inside. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if in any way it could inspire you to even create conversations with those in your own family, if you want to join us in a possible book club discussion from us live, let us know. Otherwise, you will be hearing us on another podcast episode in Christmas time when you guys come. And until next time, thank you for listening to another episode of
Color
Kohler Commentary.
commentary.
Bye.